In this episode of Getting to There, I had the pleasure to sit down with an inspiring man. Born with Hanhart syndrome, missing both legs, his right arm, and all but one finger, Nick Santonastasso is a singer, musician, professional bodybuilder, loves a good prank, and is an inspiration to both young and old. So please sit back and enjoy this episode of Getting to There. Nick, thank you very much for joining us today for our Getting to There with Fred Hubler. Want to start with, tell us a little bit about your decision to become a professional athlete.
Yeah, that's a great question. So that was coming from me being at a super low point in my life. And so when I was in middle school, going into high school, I was just in a low state. I was depressed, I was suicidal, I was out of shape, like you name it. And, I was looking for a way out. I was looking for something that was going to dig me out of this hole that I was in. And so, my freshman year, I actually started bowling. My best friend, he's still best friends to this day, Dan, he got me into bowling. He's like, Nick, it's really easy. You could do bowling. And so I did bowling for my freshman year and realized I wanted to push myself, much more physically and mentally. And so sophomore year, that's when I decided to amputate 5 inches of this arm off. So they lasered it off because my bone was going faster than my skin and I couldn't really touch it on anything. And so I made that decision. We did the amputation, and then my junior year, I came out for my wrestling team, which kind of got me on the roll and the momentum of feeling good, being labeled as an athlete. And I think that was like the first taste of me being like, okay, I like how this feels. My body's getting better. I'm getting better mentally and physically. This makes me feel good. And I think that's where it got into the weightlifting. And, I asked some of my wrestling buddies for some guidance because I didn't know what I was doing. And so basically it was just going into the gym and figuring out, which movements work for me. But from there, I think I fell in love with the therapeutic aspect of it and the way it made me feel.
That's awesome. You are an inspiration to so many people. Who are your inspirations and why?
Yeah, so actually when I was 12 or 13, there's a guy named Nick Vujicic, and he's Nick, but he has no arms or legs, and he's been speaking for years now. He's probably in his mid-30s. He's very Christian-based. He speaks a lot at churches, but I met him when I was 12 or 13. I saw him speak, and I met him backstage, and just like I remember bawling my eyes out because it was the first time I saw someone that was anywhere close to like what I looked like. But I saw that like he had a business and he was successful, and I was like, man, like I look up to this guy because I see what he was doing in a situation. So, Nick Vujicic, but also my first taste of personal development was Grant Cardone. I read the 10X rule. I read Be Obsessed or Be Average, and then I got into now Tony Robbins, Ed Milet, Aubrey Marcus. Those are some of the guys that I've been looking into now.
That's awesome. I just did my Tony Robbins Walk the Coals just 2 days ago.
Oh,
so yeah,
viral.
Yeah. So if you were unexpected, yeah, the one in outside of New York.
Okay.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And there's a playlist on Spotify. If you ever need something to amp you up, it's the UPW playlist. You can't not listen to it loud. If you were unexpectedly given an award without absolutely any background, what would your friends and family think you got the award for?
Most food eaten in one period of time. No, I'm just kidding. I love food. But I think it would probably be some sort of working with kids or some sort of, philanthropy, giving back, because I'm always looking for ways to give back, especially with things that kind of hit home with me. I mean, I'm part of an organization called Nub Abilities, where basically these coaches teach kids with limb deficiencies how to become the best possible athlete and go ahead and compete against normal-bodied kids. So I think it would probably be something of me just volunteering time and doing something cool with some kids.
What's next on your bucket list?
Yeah, bucket list. So actually we're going to be checking off something in our bucket list in December, and we're going to China. We're doing a tour in China in 2 weeks, but we're going to be able to sleep on the Great Wall one of the nights overnight. And I'm always down. We're always trying to do an amazing thing, see amazing things that are in the world that we don't get to see on a regular day-to-day basis. And so one of those things is being able to go to the Great Wall because history was my favorite subject in school, and I always loved history, and the fact that wall's been around for a very long time, and we get to go experience that and kind of put yourself in that place where back in the day where the guards were going back and forth and just guarding the wall. I think that's so cool. So sleeping on the Great Wall is definitely a cool one that we get to check off soon.
So watching some of your videos where you startled people, you came out as like a zombie torso, the first thought I had is, oh my God, what if someone like attacked him? What was the most dangerous situation you've ever been in? And did any of those people you scared ever get close to being so scared they went on the offense?
Yeah, so I did a Texas Chainsaw Massacre prank, and that was in Beverly Hills. I was probably 19 years old, and the video went ahead and got 45 million views. I went live on Fox News with Greta Van Susteren, and that I thought they were going to go on and rip me up. It's like, you know, it's very dangerous, and so we had to go ahead and have the people we scared have to sign release forms afterwards in order for their face to be viewed. And so it was definitely scary, like trashing a public elevator with blood and stuff, and you know, almost getting arrested for it and almost getting, you know, kicked out. But there was a point where, you know, it is scary, you know, pranking people, and that's probably why I stopped doing it, because nowadays with guns and, you know, people getting shot on a regular basis, you know, I didn't want to be the next, you know, prankster that got shot for being a zombie. And so you know, I kind of stepped away from that, because you're right, it was too dangerous. But there wasn't any point that got super dangerous. We kind of had, you know, a good grip on the situation and make sure things were calmed down immediately right after the thing, you know, right after the scare. But I'm grateful that we haven't had any super close encounters.
That's good. Well, what's a question you want to answer but no one ever asked you?
Oh, a question that I want to answer but no one's ever asked. Maybe, you know, well, do you have low times? You know, what are your low times? How do you get out of your low times? I feel like people, and sometimes I cut off people when I tell them what's good, because I think, you know, the majority of people, they always just highlight what I've been doing. But I want to let people know, like, I still struggle with the same things that every single person struggles with. Like, I want to let people know that, like, I'm not superhuman, I'm not Superman, that, you know, internally we all struggle with the same things. And so I guess, you know, what do I do in my low times?
In a related story, what do you do in your low times?
So yeah, I mean, in my low times, I think the biggest thing and the biggest key is self-awareness. And what I mean by that is realizing the state you're in, and realizing the thoughts that are going through your head, and realizing your physiology and your mood. And so, you know, it all comes back down to self-talk, and it's a process. But I think that one of the most important keys is that you got to sit in the muck for a little bit. You got to sit in the gut for a little bit. You got to sit in that situation where you're like, man, I don't like the way I feel. I don't like the thoughts going through my head, and like, kind of like taste what it feels like. Taste what it feels like to be in that situation, and then you got to talk yourself out of it. And you know, there's moments, like I said, where I wake up and I'm not the happiest person, and I'm like, Nick, you got to do more, and there's so much more out there, and you're not doing enough. And then, you know, also self-reflection is a big key. Like, maybe you should self-reflect on your strengths and self-reflect on your superpowers, but also self-reflect on the things that you accomplish. Because, you know, I just did a speech and I was facilitating, and I was having this company unveil their personal strengths, and people were having a hard time pinpointing these strengths because they're always focusing on what they're not good at. And so, you know, I think it's super important for people to reflect on what they've not only they accomplished, but what are their strengths? Like, what did I have to bring to the table to, you know, overcome some challenges, and kind of focus on what you're good at. Because I think people knock themselves down too much, and I do it myself. But like I said, we got to bring ourselves up, and we got to be our biggest cheerleaders with our positive affirmations, our self-talk, and reflecting on our wins. And
I couldn't think of any better question to end this interview with, because I think that is you in a nutshell. One of my questions I didn't get to ask, but you already answered, is what to do if someone doesn't share a positive outlook. And that last answer was exactly, I think, what I'd like to, you know, the kernel of what makes Nick tick. And that should be another, you know, another tattoo for you. I think that's you in a nutshell. You're positive, even though, and all of us have setbacks. And if we're having a bad day and know that you have a bad day and you can turn it around, I think that's awesome. So I want to thank you for your time. Thank your team for setting this up. Look forward to seeing you when I see you next. And thank you very much, Nick, for joining us today.
I'm grateful for the opportunity, brother. I'll be seeing you in Colorado.
You got it. Take care, brother. Thank you for joining us. Join us next time for an interview with Dave Osborne. If you don't know who he is, Google him, and you'll want to see the interview.